The Lord be with you.
And with your spirit.
A reading from the Holy Gospel according to Luke. Jesus summoned the 12 and gave them power and authority over demons and to cure diseases. And he sent them to proclaim the kingdom of God and to heal the sick. He said to them, "Take nothing for the journey, no walking stick, no sack, no food, no money, and let no one take a second tunic. Whatever house you enter, stay there and leave from there. And as for those who do not welcome you, when you leave that town, shake the dust from your feet in testimony against them." Then they set out and went from village to village, proclaiming the good news and curing diseases everywhere. The Gospel of the Lord.
Praise to you, Lord Jesus Christ.
St. Padre Pio was a 20th century saint. He only died in 1968, and he lived through World War II. He lived in Italy, incidentally, and it's clear that Padre Pio was a modern-day mystic. He received the stigmata like St. Francis of Assisi did, the wounds on the feet and sides and hands of Jesus. It was also reported that Padre Pio would oftentimes bilocate, be in two places at the same time. And in one case that I read about this morning, an Italian soldier came to him one day and was so worried that Germany was close to winning the war in World War II. And Padre Pio corrected him severely and said that they were not going to win the war. But what is most interesting is that Padre Pio really enjoyed meeting the American soldiers. And the American soldiers would oftentimes go to him. Some of them wrote about it. And I'd like to share one thing that was written by Lieutenant Doyle Stickle from Pennsylvania. He wrote a letter to his mother about his meeting with St. Padre Pio, and I would like to read that to you. Dear Mother, I went to Father Pio's Mass and was directly on the altar steps. Now, this is in the days before the Vatican II changes. Father Pio was the most devout priest I had ever seen at the altar. His low Mass took 1 hour and 45 minutes. Incidentally, a low Mass back then was like a daily Mass today. You could see that he was close to God, talking to God. His eyes were half closed. His face twitched in agony. Sweat gathered on his brow, and tears flowed from his eyes at the consecration. During the Mass, I noticed that the wounds of his hands were moist and that flesh blood was staining his fingers and the sides of his hands. Believe me, Mom, it was all there. But Padre Pio didn't just meet Catholic soldiers. He met American soldiers from all denominations. And there was a man by the name of Bob Cobble from the United States who became a Catholic in 1988 after meeting Padre Pio during the war. He became Catholic 44 years after meeting Padre Pio during the war. But it is also reported that Padre Pio had a great sense of humor. And there was a man by the name of Ray Ewan who met him and wrote about him, and this is what he said about Padre Pio's humor. I visited Padre Pio in the Friary Garden while he was having lunch during the war. I used to bring Padre Pio American beer, which he enjoyed very much. He would laugh, and he would tell me that the beer was much better than the vegetable soup that he ate every day for lunch. Padre Pio, a wonderful saint, a mystic, and yet at the same time a man of humor.